Do you like movies? So do I. This is what I watch. Hello and welcome again to the What I'm Watching podcast. Sorry we weren't here last week. Had a couple bumps in the road, but we're working those out. And we're hoping to stay regular. We're eating our fiber, and we're going to stay regular from now on. I have with me today, again, not Steven, because Steven's being a loser, and he doesn't want to talk to me. So, again, we've got Nicole.
Hey, guys.
And we've got Christian.
What up?
And they're going to deal with my annoying voice today on your behalf.
It's not that annoying.
It is. Don't sugarcoat it.
It's like maybe I'm just a nice person.
Wow, how dare you be nice?
I know, shocker, right?
All right, so in tribute to the late great Wes Craven, who is one of my huge inspirations, I've got to start, as I'm going to with everybody. We'll start with you, Nicole. What is your favorite scary movie?
Okay, I think one of the very few scary movies I have seen is The Shining. And one of the reasons why I love it is because I'm not into gore for the sake of gore. I prefer... Are we allowed to curse?
Go for it.
I prefer a mind fuck, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm an intellectual. What can
You're
I
fired.
say?
You're
Exactly.
fired.
What
You
can I
said a
say?
bad word.
Oh, God. It's like, yay. So, yeah. I prefer things that have a twist, that are screwing with your brain. So I guess that's why that and Misery, those two films are kind of like my go-to horror movies, per se. Because they don't have a whole lot of, like, blood and gore just, like, flying everywhere. Instead, it's all about making you wonder. It's about the suspense. It's about, holy fuck, what are they going to do next?
Yeah, so me, I've seen plenty of scary movies, but my favorite one is one that everyone tends to disagree with, but you know what? I don't care. Silent Hill is my favorite scary movie.
The first one or Revelations?
No, the first
3D?
one. Let's not talk about Revelations 3D. The first one's mine. Revelations 3D was okay, but like it was just pretty much nothing. They brought nothing new to the table. Also, I've never played the video game, so that's probably like I guess I'm kind of biased because a lot of people didn't like it because it didn't do the video game justice. But I pretty much liked its like phantasmagorical aspect to it. You had Pyramid Head pulling the skin off of someone, and the fact that when they're in this town, like they really can't get out. It's kind of like another realm, and the scariest part to me, at least, was when she goes into like that basement near the beginning, and there's like all those like zombie babies things. Like,
Dude.
yeah, that was weird. But
I actually have the movie at home, but I haven't watched it in so long that, or I just repressed it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, no one but me thinks it's. Like,
I actually
that
have. It's actually I run at my house. I use iTunes as like a video server, and I got the Apple TV and everything. And all my DVDs and everything I've ripped to my computer. Every now and then I'm scrolling down iTunes on my horror section, which is my biggest section. Mm-hmm. I always scroll past Silent Hill and think, maybe I should watch it. Maybe I should go back and watch it. And I'm going to do that just for you so that I can know whether or not to think more of you or less of you.
Oh, no. Well, okay. How about Cabin in the Woods? That's like a close runner-up. And then Insidious is probably third. Those are like...
Insidious? Really?
Yeah, I liked Insidious.
You like Insidious? Oh, man.
But, okay, for the non-horror freak around here, explain it to me.
Which one?
Insidious.
Insidious is pretty much about this.
Take the plot of Poltergeist and then make it worse.
Is that possible?
That's not the remake of Poltergeist, the original classic Tobe Hooper Poltergeist.
Oh my God, no! Wait, can we scratch everything that I just said?
No, it's forever.
Oh my gosh! Okay, well, at least my favorite. My favorite is Carrie, original Carrie. Sorry.
Dude.
That is a good one.
Yeah, Carrie. I keep.
Stephen King
Carrie's
is
actually
a
my favorite horror
deliciously
movie.
sick bastard who needs to either be in a mental institution or just like glorified.
Have you read his Bachman novels?
I have not.
They're my favorite of his. If you ever want to read something really disturbing, track down a book called Rage. It's like the first thing he ever wrote, and he never even published it until like decades later because he was kind of ashamed of it. Because the whole thing is, the Bachman novels are essentially like, imagine Stephen King novels, but much darker, like much more pessimistic. That's kind of what these are. And Rage takes entirely, like, from the point of view of basically a kid performing a school shooting.
Right.
And it's kind of the first thing he ever wrote. And then, if you've ever seen Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, well, that lovely sci-fi 80s classic is a bastardization of a Richard Bachman novel that's really amazing, kind of about this guy who agrees to become a fugitive from the law, and if he can evade them for like a whole week, basically his family gets taken care of for life. It's one of those like dystopian future kind of novels. Let's see, Blaze is another really good one. You should definitely check out the Bachman novels if you're into Stephen King.
Okay, actually, no, I've never read it, which is a shame because I'm an avid reader, but I've never picked up one Stephen King novel in my life. Yeah.
Okay. I say to start out with Misery, just because it's easy to follow.
Is that the one where the lady takes her favorite author hostage?
Yes. It's basically me if I were not as cute and innocent as I am.
Okay, you already sold me. There you go.
There we go.
But no, I've seen plenty of Stephen King movies. My favorite one is probably The Langoliers, but I don't know if that was a book or not.
The best book, and probably also the hardest to read, in my opinion, is The Stand.
Everyone says that.
And it's not even hard because like it has such a high literary reading level or anything. It's just that he spends so much time talking about bullshit in that. Like, here's the standard like chapter of this. One of the chapters in The Stand by Stephen King. And then he looked down the road, and there was a man walking towards him. That man reminded him of one time in that town back in 1957. And then he'll give you the 4-decade story that leads up to this man walking up about to buy a Coke from them. Like, he has the same, I guess you could call it a problem if you don't like it, in It, where he wants so hard to build up this world that he'll just take you on like 50-page diatribes about almost nothing, like just the history of it, which honestly, like ironically, is what I love about Michael Crichton. If you've ever read any of his stuff, but he uses science instead of history. Like if you've ever read Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Next, anything by him really, his stories generally stop to give a science lesson, which I love. But when Stephen King does it with history, it's just, this is boring.
I think Tolkien, I think, is one of the very few authors who's able to pull off like history lessons inside history.
See, I don't really like fantasy, like hardcore fantasy as much. There's some forms of fantasy that I like. Like I love the Final Fantasy games, but anything that's strictly like wizards and magic and elves and orcs and dragons, like I can't do it. I don't know why. I don't look down on anybody or like be like you're a nerd, but it just doesn't speak to me for whatever reason.
Ouch.
It's not for everyone. I mean, I love Harry Potter and I really loved Aragon.
That one gets me.
And Eldest. I actually didn't.
Harry Potter gets everyone.
I didn't even bother reading the last one.
I didn't.
After Eldest, it kind of just like
yeah.
died.
Well, even Eldest was like Aragon's great. Then Eldest, the whole like 250 pages where nothing happens. I was like, all right, I don't know if I really want to read the next couple of books, but like there's a point where like I diverge away because like sometimes it's overwhelming with those like the fantasy books because like you're like all right, this guy has got like his whole another language, and then there's like a
that's so
what
cool.
Harry Potter really has going for it is that, and I mean this is partly J.K. Rowling and partly just the structure of the publishing industry, but her first books are forced to be so much more simplistic. Like your introduction into the universe is not like a Tolkien where it's like throwing dictionaries in your face to try to figure out the story. Like because she was an unknown author, and it's her first book, and they're children's books, and she's starting off this series. It's a very simplistic introduction into this world. It lays out very simple ground rules.
True.
And the characters are good enough that it gets you sucked in. Whereas I think a lot of times some people, they'll stop reading like an It or a Stand because they don't know as much about those characters, and the rules aren't laid out as simply for them in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't mind that about books. I mean, I'm also a literature major, so I guess I'm just like used to like kind of like trudging through that. It's just for me
Yeah.
with like a lot of like fantasy and even horror books. The scariest book I've read might be The Road. If you ever read that by Cormac McCarthy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Oh my
it's
God.
ridiculous. It's scary, but like with fantasy books, it just like I think it's a lot of times it's just kind of trite in a way, you know what I mean? Which is kind of what turns me off, not necessarily like I'm just saying what might turn other people off is just like, what you were saying.
They become cliche.
Yeah, they become cliche, but I don't know.
It seems very much the fun of fantasy 9 times out of 10. And you every now and then you get something truly exceptional like Game of Thrones, which I don't watch, but I completely respect. Or like 9 times out of 10, the fun is having your tongue firmly planted in your cheek and playing off those tropes.
Right.
And then something like Game of Thrones comes along and really does legitimately surprise you with the way it handles it.
I think one of the things about Game of Thrones is that it's one of the very few, I guess, pieces out there that the film or, the HBO adaptation is actually better than the books. With Harry Potter, we go and we're just like, there's not enough time in the movies to make them as good as the books. But coming to Game of Thrones, again, because George R.R. Martin goes off on so many tangents, it's kind of the same concept as The Lord of the Rings, not the 2-hour Lord of the Rings, but like the extended editions, because basically what it does is it takes like the meat of the text and it brings it to life, and
It seems like a very deconstructed Lord of the Rings.
It is. Just because of the era that it's set in, because of the way it is, it does kind of follow like some sort of a prophecy in general. Even Lord of the Rings, you are expected. You have the ring bearer. In Game of Thrones, we have Jon Snow. And, he's the one he's our hero, but he's a very flawed hero. Just like Frodo is a very flawed hero. At the end, Frodo is not the one who saves the world. Sam is. Really, Sam is. And if we're looking at it technically, Smeagol is, because Smeagol bites off Frodo's finger and ends up falling into, like, Mount Doom with the ring still, like, firmly in his hand.
I think Smeagol would be like not even an anti-hero, just an accidental hero.
Exactly.
You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
even know what the hell that means.
Like,
Is that a Pokemon?
No.
Smeargle. That is like
Oh
so
my
close.
God.
Yes, that could be a Pokemon. But
I think I know that with the Harry Potter movies, I know that the people who read the books and are big fans of books, they think the movies just don't compare. But
that's with anything though.
but as somebody who's cinematically minded,
Standing alone.
the movies
Exactly.
do a fantastic job by hinting at a lot of those things without like absolutely saying it, spelling it out, and they did an awesome job of how they picked their directors. Like picking Chris Columbus to do the first 2 movies was absolute brilliance. I don't know if you know this, but the guy who directed the first 2 Harry Potter movies directed the Home Alone movies.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of like the master of that sort of whimsical childhood type
Yeah,
of
which
feeling.
is the whole environment of pretty much the first 2 books. And I mean, even though he didn't do he did the 3rd movie too.
No, he didn't do the 3rd one.
No?
No, they passed the 3rd one off to another director who did a good job. But I remember afterward, I'm sure it's much different for the later books because they get much more in depth. But I remember like the first 2 movies they appealed to me so much and they were so well done that it didn't make me go read the books, but it certainly made me go download an audiobook. And I listened to it, and it really wasn't any
audiobooks are
different.
great.
It really wasn't any different from the movie,
Yeah.
the first 2 books. So they did a really good job with those ones.
No, yeah, Harry Potter. As far as fantasy is concerned, I don't know. For me, it probably won't get any better. But that's like I said. Also, the type of books I read. I mean, they kind of. I like a lot of like philosophical Russian literature and just weird stuff like
So Harry Potter would play right up your field over there.
Yeah.
With the Marxism in it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, or like even pretty much the Marxism. Yeah, and like I like stuff like Clockwork Orange and all that stuff. But going back to going back to horror. Sorry, just bringing that back. Yeah, because we like.
Well, it's genre in general. So
Genre and okay.
yeah, but you know me, I like the horror. So anything we have to say on that, please continue.
Oh no, well I was just gonna go like I think on the same like vein as like fantasy, I'm kind of a like hypocrite because I really like zombies and like the zombie trope is so played out now, just kind of like the fantasy tropes are. But
It died to me the second the World War Z movie came out.
the book, have you read World War Z, the book though?
Here's how they should make that book. I read that book the day it came out.
Really?
I bought that the day it came out, and the entire time I'm reading it, and ever since, here's how they should have done it. Have you ever seen like the HBO specials, like Band of Brothers type stuff, the mini series?
Yeah.
That are like they're kind of reenacted
Right.
World War II stories, things. That's how it should be
That
done.
would have been
Each segment, each chapter of that book should be
Its own
an
episode.
episode.
Yeah.
That's like a retrospective kind of interview / reenactment, just like the Band of Brothers type
Kind of
thing.
like World War II in HD, that kind of thing, or
Like
whatever.
that's exactly how that book should be done. That's the only way it can be done
Yeah,
properly.
because like how do you take that book, which
And turn it into Brad Pitt's hair.
yeah,
All it became.
it's so true. It's so true. I mean, yeah, they butchered that book because, or they butchered that movie from the book. But even then, my favorite show is The Walking Dead, and I love the comics. They're amazing. But everyone's like, oh, zombies are so played out, blah blah blah. But
What somebody needs to do, somebody needs to bring back the Return of the Living Dead style zombies that don't just go down with a bullet to the brain, and they're actually trying
like
to
you
eat
gotta
your
burn
brains
them.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like they
I
can
mean,
communicate with you.
American Horror Story kind of did that in a
American
couple of
Horror
its
Story is a
episodes.
damn good show.
It is.
I can't agree.
Why?
I can't agree. Okay,
As
Get
a
out.
non-horror
I know,
fan,
right?
as a
Like,
lit major, you should be crazy about it because
No,
the thematic elements are so mind-warpingly brilliant.
It's so cheesy to me. Like,
Why?
I can't get past. In my opinion, I watched the first 3 seasons. Actually, I stopped halfway through the 3rd season because I just couldn't do it.
Okay, the 3rd season it's a ditch. You have to get through it. You got to push yourself through Coven.
Here's the thing, though. You're talking about cheesiness with television. To me, all television has a certain level of cheesiness to
Right.
it.
Yeah, but this is like
Especially
the mac
like-
and cheese of like television. Like,
No, you want to see the mac and cheese? You watch Hannibal. Hannibal to me
I've
is
heard.
the most disappointing show because it's such a good concept and they have such a good actor to play Hannibal. But the actor who plays Will Graham ruins that whole show. Like the actor who plays Will Graham and the fact that they have this weird serial killer of the day thing going on. Every episode there's a new serial killer that has this hugely intricate way of doing things.
Whereas they could just stick to one.
Yeah, like
mass.
look at Dexter. Dexter kind
was
of
just
nails
about to
that.
say
Like
that, yeah.
one per season, varying degrees of elaborateness. Like,
although it just kind of went down after season 4, but we don't talk about that.
Well, okay.
I would agree. I think I'll give it season 5 as kind of like
The exposition of who dies, and then
But 6 and everything afterward could have been condensed.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I mean, I don't watch Dexter since I'm not a crazy horror fan. But
No, you don't have to be.
Okay.
Dexter is just a good drama.
yeah, it's
Because
not really horror.
Sherlock did the same thing with Moriarty. I mean, Moriarty is a brilliantly sick, delicious. I mean, oh God, it's the way that he fucks with Sherlock's mind is so brilliant that I ship it. I ship it like crazy. I mean, not as much as I ship like John Locke, but Moriarty and Sherlock have like a special place in my heart because of, again, going back to my original point, that mind fuck. And that's why I like American Horror Story. Especially, I mean, the first season Murder House, like. I was
Yeah,
just
to me,
holy
like,
fuck.
there's a certain amount of allowance that you give to all television for cheesiness. They just have to make it worth it. And to me, American Horror Story just does such a good job of making it worth it. Especially if you're a storied horror fan like myself and a lot of other people, and you can kind of see what they're playing off of. It's absolutely awesome.
Here's the thing. What I can appreciate. All right, I'll lay it down. What I can appreciate about American Horror Story, they pay homage to like all these horror tropes, like in a respectful way. What was the more recent one with that? The circus, the
Freak show?
freak
yeah,
show.
freak show.
When that killer that there was this one scene where they
Don't
paid
spoil it. I have not gotten that far. I'm on
I'm-
season
this is-
3.
this-
I'm on season 3 working my ass.
I'm not
through
spoiling
comedy.
anything.
Okay,
But
fine.
there's one scene where they pay homage to is it Patrick Bateman from American Psycho?
Yeah.
You know which scene I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I thought that was cool. What I don't like is how American Horror Story they throw things at you out of nowhere and then just like they expect, like there's no logic behind it. And like in the first season, like everyone just dies and then that's it.
Okay, everybody dies because of certain stupidity. Everybody dies because Ben Harmon was a fucking horny jackass.
But like they made it seem like it was going to go somewhere, like
It
something,
didn't go
like someone was
somewhere.
gonna, some lesson was going to be learned, like something was going,
Well,
like
lesson was
No,
learned.
it was just,
Ben
I mean, the
Harmon-
whole idea is just all these, like Hell House is sort of a magnet for negative spiritual energy. So it's just generation after generation of spirits with negative energy attached to them trapped in this house, dealing with that current family that is almost destined to fall victim to that same negative energy.
Right.
So to me, it's not so much showing like here's a beginning, middle, and end. That whole first season is really just about here's the pattern of this house.
Yeah.
Here's how a new member gets added to the Hell House family. And if you look at it like that, it's a lot easier to, I guess, process.
I mean, that's what it kind of reminds me of The Shining in that way.
Very much so. Well, they have a hotel coming out now, so
I know.
okay. Oh, I thought it was. Wait, is it hotel or camp? The camp.
Hotel is like the
Hotel's the one
latest
that's on now, though.
Yeah, it's the latest one.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
now I know they're looking at season 6 to do like urban legends.
Mm-hmm.
So like I know Slender Man is something. I mean, right now it's just rumors. Nothing's confirmed. But I think it would be interesting to see them play off of like what's Bigfoot gonna be like.
Mm-hmm.
What's Slender Man gonna be like. I hope they bring back Jessica Lange.
actually, you're bringing up urban legends. I have to mention this movie. If you have not seen this movie, you are missing out. I love it. It's one of my I'm currently in the process of writing a found footage horror film. So I've been going and kind of watching all that I can to see what's out there, see what the current trends are, see what past trends are, what's good, what's bad.
If it's the movie I think you're gonna mention, I'm about to lose my crap because I love this movie.
Wait, okay. Spit it out.
All right, it's a movie called Exists.
Okay, never mind.
And there are two really good ones that I found. There's, oh God, I can't remember the name of the first one. It starts with an A. It's about vampires, like kind of these kids going on a trip around the world and
Anne Rice.
Afflicted. That's the name of it, Afflicted. That's a really good one. But the one that blew my mind, all right, you have the director of, I have this love-hate relationship with the director of Blair Witch Project.
That's the one I was gonna say, but
I never really liked Blair Witch Project, but I've liked everything else that director has made. And it doesn't make sense to me why I like everything he does, except for that one. It's not a bad movie. It actually has some interesting scenes, but overall as a movie, I don't get into it. Now, it comes around full circle because I watched this movie called Exists, and it's about Bigfoot, and it's a found footage movie. And Bobcat Goldthwait did another one at the same time called Willow Creek. And Willow Creek is exactly what you would expect from it. It is exactly the disappointment you would expect from a found footage Bigfoot movie. It's people talking to each other the whole time. Essentially, it's a ripoff of Blair Witch. People talking to everyone for like an hour and 15 minutes. In the last 15 minutes of the movie, the two lead characters are inside of a tent and somebody's running around outside of it slapping it.
Ow.
Is that a scary movie to you?
No.
no.
Okay, well, ironically, it was the director of Blair Witch Project who then went and made a Bigfoot movie at the same time that shows you Bigfoot from beginning to end, point blank, shows you the whole damn time, and it's one of the best makeup jobs I've ever seen. It is one of the coolest movies ever. I showed it to my wife. She loved it.
It's not on Netflix, is it?
I don't know where it is.
Okay.
I bought it.
Found footage.
Nobody knows. No, I bought it, and it's completely worth it. It's definitely one of my favorite horror movies, like of the past 5 years.
I'm gonna check that out. That sounds actually really
It
interesting.
completely made me respect found footage again, because there's only a couple of found footage movies that I've really liked.
They're kind of beating a dead horse with it, especially
Yeah,
as of lately.
Wreck is brilliant. Wreck and Wreck 2. I liked The Last Exorcism. I liked some of the things they did with it. The second one was a horrible steaming pile of shit, and you should never watch it, ever. Other than that, there's not too many great ones. But
VHS is pretty good, but those are
I
like
know-
vignette, or how do you say vignettes?
Vignette.
Vignette, yeah.
Yeah, VHS is a good concept, but not a good movie. That's my opinion. The second one is better, and this is coming from somebody who knows some of the people who made the first one.
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna give you guys the easy road. I didn't like the first VHS that much. I thought it was a cool concept. All the stuff in between is far more interesting than the actual short films. But overall, it's a cool concept, and they really knocked it out of the park with the second one. And Exists really kind of, it shows you what can be done with found footage movies. It's totally worth watching, and it gave me an extra boost of enthusiasm for the one that I'm writing.
Okay, cool.
But you should definitely go check that out, because like I said, they show him from head to toe, from beginning to end, and it feels like a real animal. It feels like, it's behaving the way you would expect a Bigfoot to behave.
All right, I'm gonna check that out. And the cool thing about that is, I think a lot of, which I'm pretty sure the Blair Witch Project kind of sparked this anyway. But I think a lot of the found footage, like they're playing off of not seeing the actual thing. Cloverfield's a great example. That's why I hate that movie, because like you see like the monster for like maybe a total of 1 minute, a minute and a half throughout the movie. And
I'm a Cloverfield fan, but I can understand why some people just don't like it.
it would have been a good movie if they would have. Well, I think it's because of the trailers too. The trailers made it seem like you were going to see the monster, and you didn't even see like the totality of like the beast. Maybe like, I don't know.
See, something a horror fan...
That just bugs me. I can't get into that.
Something a horror fan like myself appreciates is far too often nowadays you have people scaring and showing things, but they don't take the time to really set up a mythos. And I think that's what a lot of people like myself really enjoy about Cloverfield, is that it doesn't just submit itself to fan service and giving you exactly what you want. It's taking that whole movie and its whole advertising timeline and everything and setting up a mythos, which it can then build off of. Like, now they have like this kind of side film that parallels 10 Cloverfield Lane, which looks interesting. It's got John Goodman in it, and it looks like it's going to be awesome. And we'll probably get a sequel to that one day. But I can see where you would much prefer something like the Godzilla remake, where it's just out and about kind of from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, the reason you like Cloverfield is the reason I like Blair Witch Project. My problem is that like whole thing has been just revamped too many times. With Blair Witch Project, it was all about the atmosphere of what was happening, of when their friend gets lost and they don't know where the friend is, and like they're freaking out. That scared the living shit out of me for some reason, and nothing was inherently scary about it. Or like at the very end where you see the guy, he's standing in a corner and all you hear is that girl scream. Nothing was shown. It was the whole setup about it. I appreciated that. But then like everything else since then, besides like no, everything else since then. But I was gonna say Wreck, but they actually show like the people, like the infected people in Wreck. So like that doesn't really count. But everything since then, in my opinion, that's tried to do that. Paranormal Activity is
Activity is a pile of garbage.
Yeah,
from the first one to the I guess they're on like the 12th one now or something. That one sucks too. I haven't seen it, but I can tell you right now it's
probably
awful.
terrible. Yeah,
and if you go and watch that movie, you're killing horror.
Yeah.
Like, and I know you like Insidious and stuff like that, but I personally, like I mentioned it on another podcast, you either like James Wan and what he does with Insidious and Conjuring and all that, or you hate him. And I hate him because I feel like he's turning horror movies into a very surface level haunted house thing.
Yeah.
His characters are practically made of rubber. They don't, like, I don't empathize with them. Vera Farmiga is, I believe it was Vera Farmiga who was in one of his films. I think it was Insidious. The actress who plays the wife, she's a wonderful actress. I've seen her in many other things. She is awesome. How he got such a wooden, horrible performance from her is astounding to me. Like, his stuff feels like it comes out of the Halloween section of a CVS. That's how I feel about
Shots
James
fired.
Wan movies. It just makes it that much worse that he's directing the Aquaman movie.
So, what, in your opinion, what is your, like, I guess in this day and age, what is your definition of a good horror film? Like, what elements do you think it needs to bring to the table? Because a lot of people, I mean, there's not very many horror fans left. I mean,
if you want to see to me, Well, that goes back to why I like horror movies. The reason I got into horror movies is because, I first started watching them when I was like 3 years old. My mother caught me watching Child's Play on the TV at midnight.
Child's Play is great.
And
At
it
midnight?
never stopped.
Oh my God.
She just had to submit to it and deal with the fact that that was going to be my life. And I started like kind of pondering it as I kept watching it over the years, and I started realizing, I stayed with it because movies in general, to me, as time goes on, society and people kind of become more and more cynical. We're getting more and more cynical. But movies are sort of the last place to really truly empathize with another human being, to really watch another person emote and then empathize with what they're feeling.
Right.
It's sort of one of the last places to see honesty. And that's why I really like movies. And I like horror movies in particular because they don't necessarily just say it to you when they do that. If you've ever seen a movie like Phantasm or Suspiria or something really impressionist and something gets its message across much more with visuals than words, I appreciate being able to empathize with those images.
Right.
And being able to be touched by those images, almost like one painting after another. It's beautiful to me. And then you throw humans in the mix and see everything they do. So to me, how you make a good horror films nowadays or in any other era is to stop thinking, boo. Stop trying to scare people with jump scares. Stop trying to make something creepy. And just make something that's scary because you empathize with it.
Yeah.
Make something that's scary because you understand it but don't understand it at the same time. That, to me, is what makes a good horror movie. Look at The Exorcist.
Yeah.
That is the best way to sum up that movie.
True. That's a good point. Like something that's like not completely out of whack, kind of like, which I like this movie, but like The Ring, like, I can't relate to The Ring. That's never going to happen. You know what I mean? But like The Exorcist is a good example. I'm trying to think of other good examples. I guess there's not too many, but yeah,
I guess why is American Horror Story so scary? Murder House, because you go down into your own basement and you're thinking, what is the past of my house? Asylum, it's happened. Like, that was literally the way that our world
That is
was.
part of what I love
Yeah.
about that show, too, is they do take time to be impressionistic. They're not like a lot of TV shows where, yes, they do spell some things out because it's television and you kind of have to, but they also really take moments to just kind of show you things and just let you look at them and come to your own conclusions. But I really do like stuff like, like Exorcist and especially Phantasm and Nightmare on Elm Street. My favorite movies are the ones that are most impressionistic, that let their visuals speak for them and kind of speak to a deeper meaning, something more complex than I love you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then random sex scene, like
Yeah. On that note, I was going to talk about this in another episode, but I might as well just talk about it now. Nicole, I know you have to leave this
Yeah.
soon, so as soon as you got to pop out, go ahead.
Okay.
But I was going to say, like, I can only, tell me if you guys agree before you go.
Yeah.
I can only ever think of one sex scene in any movie ever that I felt like belonged there, that I felt needed to happen there, and it's in the first Terminator movie. The first Terminator movie, the love scene between Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese, is to this day, if you watch it, it's the only like love scene I've ever empathized with, that I've ever felt needed to be in that movie, or you wouldn't believe the story. If you didn't see the passion in that scene, you would not believe that these two people who met the day before are going to result in the savior of humanity. Can you think of any other?
I can't think of any other movie. I see it more often in TV shows than I see it in like actual films. Because now that you're mentioning it and I'm thinking about it, like I don't see it in film, but like again, I know I'm keep going back to American Horror Story. If she wasn't raped by the men in the leather suit, there would be no Antichrist. There would be no kind of issue.
But to me, it's not about it happening in the
Game of
story. It's about showing it on screen. How many movies have you seen where it is absolutely imperative that we film that scene and make it a part of the movie?
Team America. No, just kidding. No, there's not many, and I mean, you bring up a very good point, and I guess I never really thought. I guess Terminator is a good example. I feel like there's more. It's just there's not that many.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. It's just hard. same here. It's kind of hard to think of them, which that's kind of a shame because that is like that's supposed to be one of the most beautiful things that we as humans do.
But we just throw them in movies because let's put a sex scene here. It'll
Exactly.
it'll
99 out of 100 times it's never going to mean anything in a movie. It's
Right.
just there.
Exactly. I'm trying to think. I don't know, man. Like, even I don't know. Nicole said in TV shows, but I think especially in TV shows, there's just sex scenes that don't. Game of Thrones, man. There's so much nudity and sex.
No. Game of Thrones. Before I leave, like I am packed up and ready to go.
I struck a chord.
But the thing is, my mother has a bone to pick about the sex scenes in Game of Thrones, and I explained to her. But this means something. I mean, how do you know how sick and sadistic Joffrey is until you see what the fuck he does to those prostitutes? How do you know how manipulative Peter Baelish is if you don't see him with the whores? I mean, he is. The sex in Game of Thrones is so conveying, and there's so many important things that go on during sex. I mean, why is Cersei Lannister so fucked up? Because she fucks her brother on a regular basis.
I might have to go watch this show just to see what you're talking about.
I'm only on season 2. It's actually pretty good.
I'm gonna be ashamed to tell my wife that I have to go watch
please.
Game of Thrones just to watch the sex scenes.
It's like this
I don't think she's gonna be happy.
No, I mean, the sex scenes in Game of Thrones are so important that I literally sit down beside my dad awkwardly through them, and I'm just like,
do you put a couch pillow in between you guys, like
I'm
one of the big ones, so you don't have to look at each other?
It's literally like we occupy ourselves with. We got 2 Chihuahuas, so we occupy ourselves with the dogs conveniently while we're watching, and then my mom walks in and she's just like, "What the hell are you guys watching?"
Pretend to get a phone call, walk out,
watch
watch the scene through the window.
They're actually doing it. The phone rings.
That's the problem. Like, my mom's just like, can't you just fast forward through it? It's like, no, you can't, because so many important things take place during the sex of Game of Thrones that you wouldn't be able to understand the series without it.
Yeah, okay.
Now, some of the violence, on the other hand, like, do you really have to do that? Do you really have to show all that stuff?
Well, yeah, you could argue the same thing for the violence, though, and that's what I'm saying. Like, the saturation of the violence, or the sex, in my opinion, is just unnecessary. Yeah, I get it. Like, this guy beats up.
Okay, if I didn't have to go, I would pick you to pieces. However,
I think we have to take the violence element out of this. When there's violence involved, you have a bit more of an argument. Mm-hmm. But to me, where it really gets called into question, Nicole's just left us, so we're going to continue on with Christian, because he's a cool dude.
Thank you.
I think it comes far more into question when it's a scene without violence. Mm-hmm. It's like I said, I mean, Terminator's the only one I could think of where that's a love scene where it's showing me how, like, the passion that these two have, how much they actually love each other. Mm-hmm. And I can't really think of any other love scene that, isn't violent that conveys such an important message.
Right.
It almost always just seems like, well, we know you might be getting a little bit bored, so hey, here's some tits.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, all right, so it's almost like an intermission especially for horror movies. Like,
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, all right, so blah blah blah. Here's some boobs. I'm thinking a good example of this. Was it House of Wax where you saw like Paris Hilton's boobs or something, and I don't remember.
Well, that's one of 2 movies she's in, so I'm gonna guess yes.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, as a dude, it's like, all right, cool. But like as a moviegoer, it's like, okay, and another one, and another one, and another one.
Like when I'm watching them nowadays, I'm just like, I'm a horror movie fan. Mm-hmm. I've seen more tits in my lifetime than most people could possibly count to. So it doesn't impress me anymore. I've moved past that. I'm not a preteen anymore. It doesn't matter to me. I want a good horror movie.
Right, exactly.
It's why I've thought about it more and more as time goes on. It's like, why did they even keep throwing these at me? And I guess it's just to get those little kids to...
Yeah, go see it. It's like, wasn't it like in the second Halloween? I mean, a lot of the appeal is that you got to see Jamie Lee Curtis's boobs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they even talk about that in an episode of like That 70s Show or something. I remember that. Or no, because the second one came out in like 79, didn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Is that 79 or 81? Let's do a fact check.
Yeah, we have the internet. Every time I get into an argument, when I get into an argument with my friends, I'm like, wait, we have the internet.
I summon the power of the great IMDb. Halloween 2. Not the horrible Rob Zombie one.
Speaking of Rob Zombie,
1981. Yeah.
1981. Okay, maybe it was a different movie.
I
but
think 79 was the first one.
79 might have been it was definitely the first one. Going off Rob Zombie, just a side
my
tangent.
God.
House of a Thousand Corpses is the only movie that I actually really enjoy by him, and I really like that movie.
Can I tell you why?
Why?
It's because up until that point in career, like he essentially made a music video. Any sort of semblance of a plot or character or story, he just ripped off from Texas Chainsaw Massacre or
Fair.
a couple of others. Like, it's not a movie.
Yeah.
It's one long music video with half-baked concepts.
Yeah.
Like, Rob Zombie is possibly the biggest disappointment in horror ever.
I don't really appreciate anything else he's done. He didn't do The Hills Have Eyes, did he?
No, that was Alexander Aja, who's one of my favorites. I love Alexander Aja. If you've never seen High Tension, stop what you're doing, go watch that now. Go watch the Hills Have Eyes remake. Even Piranha 3D, F it, go watch that. And he produced one of the best horror movies of the past 2 decades, which was the Maniac remake with Elijah Wood.
Really?
That is one of my favorites. It's so beautiful.
That was on Netflix, and I've been recommended that movie so many times.
Dude, watch it.
Watch it? Okay.
Watch it. It doesn't even matter that Elijah Wood's in it. He does a great job, but it's just every part of that movie is perfect. The soundtrack is a perfect 1980s synth score. It is wonderful. And I can't recommend it enough. And it's so artistically done. Again, like I was talking about earlier, I love movies that are sort of impressionistic, that get across their point with more than just words. And it absolutely does that. It's so perfect.
American Psycho is another good example. I know I mentioned it briefly, but I guess it's a horror movie. It's more
It's a movie. I understand its appeal to most people. I don't particularly care for it because I feel like I feel like there's 2 times you leave an open-ended movie. One is when you're making an artistic point and it is appropriate. The second is just when you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the latter. So I feel like the whole movie it has cool moments, but it just doesn't lead to anywhere.
I don't know. My friend is a film major, and he was when I first watched it, I liked it, but I didn't really appreciate it. He told me that pretty much the whole thing was a critique on the yuppie generation and the whole bourgeoisie, impress everyone, yada yada, and at the end it was kind of
It is, but there's some ideas that are just a short film.
In fact, you think it could have stood as a short film?
If you take it past 15 or 20 minutes, you need to give me a story. And that movie doesn't have one. It starts to have one, kind of.
But he's just
a
a psycho killer. Yeah.
But everything just, to me, it screams bad writing. I don't like the writing of it. I can't say that I've ever read the book, but my understanding is the book goes about things very differently. And I would have liked to see what would happen if they'd have followed a little bit more of that, because I feel like the filmmakers had some ideas, but they were a little bit halfway thought out and kind of don't go anywhere. But again, it's got some awesome moments in it, and I think of the first half hour as a cool short film.
Fair enough. Also, Christian Bale, he's a great actor. He really gets in character there. So I think that's also the appeal. You really don't know.
The author of the book hates his performance.
Really?
She specifically points to the scene where he's dancing behind his victim, and she says Patrick Bateman would never, ever do that.
Interesting. I have to read that book. I really do. Now I feel
if you don't read the book, honestly, just read the author's critique, because it's very interesting. Even if you don't want to read the book, or even if you do, the way she speaks about the movie, I've never read anything that she said that was bitter, but it would just, I always like hearing an author talk about the movie. Chuck Palahniuk, he's the opposite with Fight Club. He'll openly admit that Fight Club, he believes it's better than his book. He believes the movie turned out better, whereas she is apparently the opposite, and that's always interesting to me.
Interesting. I think it's kind of like a general consensus that the Fight Club movie is better than the book, which is funny. You know what? It's funny because a lot of people I know like Fight Club, but then a lot of people who are film fanatics hate Fight Club. There's this huge dichotomy between people who are they just enjoy film.
Well, most film fans are snobs.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And somebody like David Fincher is very talented at bringing our kind of impressionistic and very complex themes and sort of more experimental film ideas to a general audience. He's really good at making the general audience be able to appreciate and play around with those ideas. Like with Seven. Seven is not your typical, detective movie, and he plays around with a lot of cool ideas there.
Right.
And in both movies, I mean, he just makes the sort of film world more accessible
yeah.
to the common viewer.
Fair enough.
And I think a lot of filmies they don't like that.
Yeah.
They don't like not feeling special.
They like their own little.
Let's be real though. Most people become film majors or filmmakers because they have a very special ego. Mm-hmm. Now that's important for a filmmaker to have, but a lot of the times it makes you feel stupid things.
Yeah, fair. I mean, Stanley Kubrick, he was so meticulous in his directing, and he was so prideful and borderline arrogant, and he had a huge ego. That's a prime example. I know a lot of the best directors and even actors, they're very egotistical and very like, I need to do this my way.
I've had some problems with I do freelance teaching. I'm a teaching cinematographer. For those of you who don't know, if you want to learn how to shoot your own films and learn digital cinematography, I work as a teaching cinematographer. That means you can hire me for a nominal hourly rate, and not only will I shoot your film, I'll teach you what I'm doing so that you can do it next time. So that's my little commercial. But
Nice.
after that, I've dealt with some people who, I'm into teaching. I teach here at GSU to an extent, and do this cinematographer thing. And there are some people, when you talk to them about teaching class, they truly don't believe that you can teach actors how to act unless you are an actor. They think that they will tell you acting is the most important part of film and theater. And I have to look at them and I tell them, well, Kubrick and Hitchcock said actors are nothing but toys. And I think I respect them more than you. But it's so funny, kind of the way people will sort of bloat their importance to make themselves feel better.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's been funny dealing with some people who just cannot comprehend that, like, somebody who has no idea about acting could get on the stage and, if prepared properly, do as good a job as them. Like, think about somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't go to like a repertory theater or, go study in New York to perfect his craft. That man went to a bodybuilding competition and then became fucking Conan.
Yeah.
That's what happened there. He became the Terminator, and he became one of the most successful actors. Why? Because acting in theater, yes, very much a craft. Mm-hmm. Acting in film can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
So much of that is knowing technical things, knowing how to work on set, knowing how to find your key light, knowing that you're going to have to do takes over and over again, how to conserve your energy, just basic things like that. And you can teach somebody that as a director. Ultimately, as a director, I know what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. I know what I need from you. I can see you. I can see what you're doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And we should know from auditions and from rehearsals and everything that came before how to communicate to each other.
True.
And that's how you get people like John Cena or people who have no place acting becoming really famous actors.
So would you say that there's like a small but important difference between like stage acting and film acting, where stage acting or film acting, as you said, the actors are kind of like more so tools, where stage acting, it's more emphasis on the actors and less emphasis on like the setup? Or would you say like it's kind of the same deal with both cinema and film, or cinema and
I would say on stage, because I've directed plays and films. Mm-hmm. And I could say on stage, the fun of theater is working with the actors. Like for me, filmmaking, I enjoy filmmaking because it's, again, like I said earlier, it's like a painting after a painting. Mm-hmm. You're painting canvas, and kind of the actors are one of your paints, but so is your set design, and so is your lighting design, so is all of these other things. Whereas on the stage, really, that's good practice for me. For then working with those actors on the film. Because on the film, I have a very limited amount of time to talk to them. If you're my actor, I might come up to you and say, okay, in this scene, I'm going to need this, this, and this. Do you think you can do that for me? And you're going to say yes. And that's all we're going to get, aside from the rehearsal time we got earlier. But in theater, that's where I get to practice that skill. I get to practice knowing exactly what to say to you in that 5 seconds, because in theater, the lighting designer is off doing his thing, and he'll show everything to me, and I'll approve it. But for the most part, I'm working with actors.
Gotcha.
I am communicating with them back and forth. We're developing ideas. We're collaborating, and that's where theater really comes into play. It is acting centric, but only for the director and actor. There are plenty of other technicians in there who have nothing to do with those actors.
Right. You're right. Interesting.
Like I've done a lot of projection design work for theater, and the only thing I've ever needed to know about actors in that position is just where they're standing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Interesting.
All right, I think that's going to be about all the time we have for today. Thank you to Christian for stopping by.
No problem. I would love to come back, by the way.
All right, well then we'll have you next week.
All right.
Go watch some scary movies for me.
Yeah, I will, definitely.
I'm going to thank Nicole, even though she's not here. And then I'm going to give everybody homework. For next week, one of the 2 days next week, I'm probably going to talk about Mystery Science Theater. So I want everybody to watch a Joel episode of Mystery Science Theater. I would suggest Manos, Hands of Fate.
Okay.
And then I want them to watch a Mike episode of Mystery Science Theater. I'm a Mike fan, so I have lots of those I can recommend. Squirm, Merlin's Mystical Shop of Wonders is probably my favorite. Devilfish is also a good one. Anything past like season 7,
Okay.
I would go for. So go watch one of those, and then watch some Puppet Master films. Watch something from Full Moon Entertainment. Go do that. All right, thanks everyone, and can't wait to see you next week.
All right, take care.